Hey, Al, are you still there?
I am, Marty.
I'm just logging right back in now. I don't know what it froze on me there, of course, naturally.
Okay, no problem. For those of you who are on the phone, the presentation is going to be starting in just a moment.
Yeah, if you want to pass presenter control back to me.
Okay, 1 second. Okay, you should have control, Marty. I made you the organizer.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, we're back.
Okay, great.
Motionsoft corporate offices here in Rockville, Maryland. Welcome, and thank you for joining us for webcast number 8 of our technology trends you can put into practice in 2019. Today, we've invited Chris Smith, the CEO and president of Steve Nash Fitness World and Sports Clubs, to discuss how Chris and his staff are providing guidance to new members and what new member onboarding may look like in the gym of the future. I'd like to take a moment and thank our sponsor, which is eGym. Marty Regan from eGym is joining us today. Thank you, Marty, for your work and for sponsoring the Motionsoft Technology Summit. My name is Al Noshirvani. You got it. My name is Al Noshirvani. I'm the co-founder and chairman of Motionsoft. I'm going to be your moderator for today's webcast. I'm also the co-host of the 6th Annual Motionsoft Technology Summit, along with Todd Tweedy, our Chief Marketing Officer here at Motionsoft. I hope that you'll join us next week on Thursday, December 12th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, when Raj Sareen from Staiku is going to discuss how artificial intelligence is impacting fitness experience. And a little bit about the Motionsoft Technology Summit. The Summit is an amazing industry event. It brings together really smart people to discuss the challenges and opportunities of technologies in the fitness industry. And I hope that you'll join us for the 6th Annual Motionsoft Technology Summit that will take place in Washington, D.C., September 16th through the 18th of 2019. In fact, you can contact us and get early bird discount tickets now for only $249, which is a great deal. So before I turn things over to Marty and to Chris, I'd like to remind you that this is a webinar. It is being recorded. Your microphones are all muted, but you'll have the ability to ask questions via the chat feature that I'm going to review with you momentarily. After the webinar concludes, you're going to be sent an email with a link to download the video recording of this webinar that you can share with your staff. Now, I'm going to take 1 minute, and I'd like to ensure that you guys all know how to use the webinar control panel and how to ask questions. And if you look on the slide that's being displayed right now, first you have the control panel typically on the right-hand side of your screen, and that's the image that you're seeing. If you don't see the control panel on your screen, look in your taskbar for the orange clover icon, the GoToMeeting icon, and click it, and the control panel should pop up. You'll be able to submit questions during the webinar by clicking on the question module in the control panel. And please take a moment now to familiarize yourself with this feature. Maybe send me a couple of test questions that I can verify that you're using everything correctly. I actually saw an email from my friend Mike Lotus. Welcome, Mike, or a question rather. So excellent. During the presentation, if questions pop up into your mind, go ahead and type them in. We may not take them right at the beginning, but we will get to them eventually. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Marty Regan from eGym to introduce Chris from Steve Nash. Go ahead, Marty.
Great, thanks, Al. Just want to first say really appreciate everything that Motionsoft is doing here. The Technology Summit is obviously one of the great events in our industry, and we're happy to participate in that every year. Wanted to first take a minute here and introduce a man that really needs no introduction, Chris Smith, CEO and President of Steve Nash Fitness Pro. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Marty.
Great. Well, wanted to say thanks for spending some time. We know you're busy. We know you're a traveling guy. I think Chris is on the move today, even heading back from the East Coast, taking some time out to share some expertise with us. So greatly appreciated, and looking forward to asking you about the gym of the future and talking through some of this stuff today, Chris. Thanks.
No problem.
I wanted to quickly start, and just to kind of give everybody a little bit of a background on, Chris and I had a recent pretty funny experience. So for those of you who know me, I can be what we call slightly competitive at times, and I went ahead and challenged Chris to a chest press competition at a recent industry event. So there he is, kind of showing off, a little bit of foreshadowing here for everybody. Not only did Chris absolutely murder my record on the equipment, but he also set the highest number that I've ever seen in my time working with eGym here. So, and he did it not only at a trade show, middle of the day, but he was wearing slacks, and it was pretty impressive. Embarrassed me, and there's a picture of me looking pretty dejected. But there you go, just a little bit of backstory with Chris crushing my record. I think that was a few months ago, but let's go ahead and just dive in here. I wanted to quickly start, with the overall theme of the webinar today. It's how to provide guidance to new members in what we call the gym of the future. And why is that important? Well, we all know that a thorough and successful onboarding experience is one of, if not the most important factor in members hitting their goals and ultimately remaining a member longer. So, what we see here, and this is something that we've, kind of come up with at eGym in terms of what we see, and I think some others in the industry as well. We see it's the vast minority of members that are actually experts. In our estimation, that's about 10% of the actual gym goers. And then the vast majority are those that really need that guidance. And at first, especially, can't afford personal training. Maybe it's something that's going to be an option for them down the line. But how do we leverage things like technology to help them hit their goals? So, first question here for Chris. Chris, really, is it something you agree with that the small percentage of members are the non-experts in the gym, and that the large majority needs that extra guidance?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that, Marty. What I would also say is I haven't looked at recent statistics, but definitely looked at some stuff back in the day where we would talk about like 50% of people would actually hurt themselves, say in the first 6 weeks of an actual gym membership. So if you think about 1 out of every 2 people who joins your club getting injured, that's certainly anything but an ideal experience, and sends them down a path of attrition and cancellation and so forth. And so certainly getting people onboarded the right way is critical to the overall operational success. And at the end of the day, I think all operators want members that are using their facilities and enjoying them, and accomplishing the goals and all the things that they aspired to do when they first decided to walk in that door as a guest. So from a technology standpoint, things that, we do is really kind of leveraging that onboarding experience. They get kind of an immediate notification email thanking them, give some kind of basic instructions on what to do when they get to the club, include some discounts and coupons or invitations to, say, group fitness classes and some of that information. And then depending what happens in their kind of immediate behavioral continuum, like once they join the club, we're then going to continue to use technology. We tend to partner with HubSpot for a lot of our drip campaigns, not just for a guest or member acquisition, but even for our, existing members, how we communicate to them from a drip perspective in terms of their onboarding. And so we'll do a little bit of that and continue that process through from a fitness assessment, again, group fitness classes and whatever else we can do to help them accomplish their goals. As part of that, we did have now got one line of the eGym equipment in one of our clubs. And certainly at that particular location, we've streamlined it where that is part of the onboarding process to get people exposed to that line of equipment because it's just, the simplicity of what it is and getting set up on it as well. In that process, there's a relationship building that, takes place with that personal trainer, which again, I think everyone understands from an operational perspective that if your new members start building relationships in the club with either other members and or staff, again, that it, leads them down a path of, staying a member and enjoying their membership and then ultimately referring others, et cetera, et cetera. So that might be a long-winded answer, and I don't want to, sit here and sound like a big bag of gas. So I'll leave it at that for the question.
No, totally. Good stuff. Good stuff. Really kind of ties into what we want to talk about here, which, is the gym of the future. That's what we call it here at eGym. And you touched on a few things there. Really two-part question. You covered some of it, but what are the trends you foresee for 2019 and what we're calling the gym of the future? And I know you mentioned HubSpot and some other technologies. So first up, what are the trends you foresee? And what are your thoughts on the guided experiences? And more specifically, what are some of the things at Steve Nash Club that you're seeing work well from, some of the newer technologies that you've adopted?
Yeah, so, I think it'll be interesting as things continue to evolve. I've met with a number of the, top leaders at the different equipment manufacturers across the continuum and, the technology that they're going to have around the integrated, rep counting and everything else and the ability for everyone to kind of come in the gym and on, say, a club's app. I think people will, in not too distant future, have real-time information on exactly what they did the day prior or if they want to log their workout as they're going. No one will necessarily need to carry around a notebook and a pen. They'll just be able to look at their phone, which most people, majority of people carry around in the club, and they'll be able to keep track of kind of what they're doing and what that looks like and what progressions they need to make or even examples of things and click videos for a demonstration on how to use a particular piece of equipment. I think that stuff's coming for sure. In terms of what we're using today, like I mentioned, we have eGym in one gym at this point. We have some of the virtual classes at this stage we use, EcoFit as part of really kind of making a lot of our purchasing decisions around what equipment we believe our members want. And by one, it's really just based on the overall usage. And then from there, we'll take that kind of object information and then still put a little subjectivity around it where we'll then go in and, have some folks talk to the actual members themselves and we'll figure out to make sure that, hey, here's what we're thinking about doing. What do you think? And really kind of seeing, gauging member feedback to make sure, that maybe as an example, if a particular line of cardio seems really busy, is it just its proximity to an actual entrance or an aisle, or is it because we actually don't have a particular piece of equipment, say woodway treadmills? But if we did have woodway treadmills, then those would be the busiest because that's what the members are clamoring for, as an example. So, we have a lot of different technologies that are plugged into the business in a way to, enhance the member experience for sure, and certainly make the ease of use as best in class as we can to just, deliver on what we're trying to do from a mission statement and core values perspective.
Awesome. Yeah, good stuff. You mentioned a few things there. We totally agree. I mean, we see a lot of the similar trends, workout tracking, the virtual classes, even member feedback, getting the member feedback on what they want to see inside the club is a trend that we're seeing more and more of. So all things that we totally agree with. Another thing I wanted to talk to you about, Chris, was, here at eGym, we believe there's really three key things that need to happen in order to successfully onboard a new member. And what those three things are is it has to be easy, motivational, and fun. really, I guess the first thing on the easy to use side, I'd love to know sort of what are your clubs doing to create a sort of seamless and unique onboarding experience for a new member?
Yeah, I mean, our process is, I don't think, all that different, and certainly I don't think we're overly inventive when it comes to that, but we certainly have kind of a goal assessment process where, the plan is to get every member through that. We talk about, again, the percentage of people that are actually experts in the facility and or injury prevention for someone just getting back started on an injury or on a, exercise program. I mean, the reality is the majority of people coming to your gym are not moving from one gym to another. They're likely starting up a new regime. And that means they're trying to, go through change, and change is hard. And most people are really bad at managing change in their life in any capacity, not to mention diet, exercise, and everything else that goes with it. So for us, it's really about making sure that we get them involved in that process early on from a goal assessment perspective. We usually will take them through at a minimum one appointment. If the member is open to it, it's usually a 2-appointment kind of cadence. And then from there, we usually try to follow up with each of those members on the 30-day cadence through our fitness department to ensure that they're still mapping towards their goals and having the amount of success that they're looking for as it relates to our product and facility. So that's kind of what we do. I mean, I think when you talk about the easy, the fun, whatever, I think the fun part, the reality is yes, we want it to be fun, but I think that comes in time. I think there's always a little bit of intimidation or apprehensiveness or people that aren't entirely familiar with, stuff. And I think the fun comes a little bit down the road, usually. I mean, I think if you can get somebody involved in a group fitness class, the benefit of maybe getting somebody in a, even if it's a virtual class or it's a lifetime class, and maybe they're with some people they already know that are also members of the gym, you might be able to get that fun factor to come to life a little bit more quickly than through just say, strength training or just normal gym time. But yeah, I do agree. It's an important element, certainly, to making somebody want to stay. If they're not having any fun doing it, they're not going to keep coming. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We see the exact same thing. I think you covered a lot of things there. Obviously, the sort of ease of the onboarding, getting them into that first appointment, obviously is key. And you said ideally 2 if they're open to it. And then checking in, obviously, every 30 days is helpful as well. Sort of the other part is the motivational part. I'm using, obviously, it's a shameless plug here, using some eGym screenshots, but there's a lot of ways and there's a lot of tracking apps and different things that are out there. Lots of great technology and new things are popping up all the time. What about motivational data? Is there anything that you guys are doing specifically, any data that you're using to motivate the new members?
Well, obviously we do have, like I said, we have the eGym platform in one of our, 23 locations right now as we continue to kind of, I would say, finish what has been a learning experience for us as it relates to that equipment and how to best leverage it with our member base and everything else. But in terms of, what we do from an overall perspective, we don't, unfortunately, we weren't able to, get some of the, what I would say, gamification heart rate technology when it was at the tip of the spear. And so some of that kind of passed us by in that regard in terms of where that technology was. So, we do certain things where we'll run 90-day challenges in our club. So a little bit more like the old school stuff that we'll do with the members. And again, you don't have to be working with a personal trainer to join the 90-day challenge, and we'll take measurements and post results. And we do kind of big parties to celebrate the results. And the winner sometimes will maybe get something monetary, and or they might get something in the form of personal training or some other fitness related, technology in the form of, a Fitbit or something else that, is relatable to their continuation of their journey on their fitness goal. So we do more like old school motivational stuff from an overall kind of member perspective and member approach, not necessarily at this stage able to leverage a ton of stuff with technology. What I would say though is that we are, constantly looking at that. And so recently we, we're meeting with Mr. John Ford, and in terms of obviously someone and it was really around that pulse and where we can continue to take the relationship of our app and the stuff that we do there with our members. So there are member challenges and some different things that we'll push through our app from a motivational perspective. At this stage, I would say they're very kind of low level versus I think where our imagination would have that journey take. But again, I think, as technology evolves, as the members continue to evolve, we'll see more and more of that and the ability to do that. And I also do believe that it's a place where members want to engage. It's a safe place, right? I don't have to be called out. I don't have to stand in front of a room. I can kind of do my thing and reap some rewards and be part of a community all at the same time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, John Ford's a guy I've heard of once or twice in the past, and it's great that you bring up NetPulse as well. Like, it's just another option that's out there in terms of lots of great technologies. For us, that kind of ties the room together a little bit. I mean, a big focus for eGym is to make data accessible through other platforms, through integration and integrated partners. And ultimately, we want to be an open source platform. There's sort of two schools of thought: the closed loop, sort of what we call like Apple versus Android, right? Where Apple would want you all in one ecosystem, that's theirs. Androids want to be able to, leverage whatever is best in class and tie everything together. So that's really the sort of the core focus of eGym and what we call the eGym cloud. So we tie together things like your gym management software, apps, and body analysis tools, wearables, even cardio equipment. We integrate with a lot of the top cardio manufacturers that are out there. And, it's not just eGym that's doing this. It's really happening across the industry, we see, and especially so moving forward. 2019 is, a year where more and more of these technologies are going to come together. And I think you kind of touched on it. You kind of nailed it with what you said about keeping the members motivated through that.
Yep.
The last thing, and I know you touched on it a little bit already, I wanted to talk about sort of the fun component. So you've got your member onboarded, you've got them engaged, you got them motivated. You talked about some of the things you're doing challenge-wise. Are you doing anything else in terms of, reward programs, gamification in any way across the club? I know you said you do some old school monetary things, which, believe it or not, this day and age, people still love those monetary incentives, right? So all those things work. So is there anything else you guys are doing in terms of any of that to kind of keep it fun and engaging over time for the members?
Yeah, there's a few things. One thing I would say, and it is, back even to your product, as we were working through kind of the test and looking at, all right, we were having quite a bit of success with the eGym platform and getting members that were new, to the gym and the facility to go through the orientation session, if you will, and getting them to experience, what eGym was all about and all that it had to offer to simplify the experience, et cetera, et cetera. And then as time went on, we kind of saw a lot more gravitational towards, what I would call the 55 plus crowd that was really doing it. And so we were kind of missing that kind of everyday gym goer using the equipment. And regardless of them doing the entire circuit or not, which I think by design is the original intent, there's still just some, auxiliary pieces that could play into just anyone's workout. So one of the things we did is we had the personal trainers do like a strength contest on all the equipment. And then we posted their results. And then we shared that with the members, and it was kind of a challenge, like, see if you can beat the trainers. And it was just a way to get more people to experience the equipment and kind of open their eyes to maybe, just the technology and kind of what was going on there. Because I think some folks are still apprehensive because, hey, it looks different. Someone has to kind of set me up and show me what to do. And even if I am an experienced gym goer, I'm not used to that. I'm not used to having to have someone set me up on something. I'm used to being able to walk over and just do it myself. So kind of bridge the gap there. And we had some trainers obviously man the stations and post results and, ring a bell and make some noise when somebody actually broke a record to kind of gamify it and make it fun using, that platform. So I mean, I could comment on some other stuff, but I would maybe just leave it at that if, unless there's more that you'd like me to speak to.
No, that's great. That's great stuff. I have to ask though, were you one of the trainers that participated, and did anybody beat you? Because we kind of had a similar story we shared at the front end here.
No, I did not participate because, I got to let the trainers, win the day.
You didn't participate because it was going to be an unfair advantage. I get it. You can gloat a little bit. You don't have to be so modest.
Well,
that's really great stuff.
Yeah, I would say, I'm 6'5", 290 pounds. So if I'm, an ex-professional football player, so if I'm not stronger than most people, then that's kind of shame on me at this stage.
You can't fault me for trying though, Chris. I had to at least try.
Fair enough.
And that brings us to, sort of the end of what we had sort of pre-planned from this Q&A session. We do want to save some time and open it up for some questions from the attendees. So, Chris, if you're okay with it, I'll take a look here and see if there's any questions from the crowd. Sorry, I have to exit.
I've got a couple here, Marty.
Do you want to go ahead and
Chris,
read them off, and I'll just keep the screen live?
Sure, yeah. So, Chris, one question that's come up is from Jim, and the question is, have you found that eGym has either reduced or augmented PT spend with your members? In other words, I think what he's asking are people using that in lieu of personal training?
Yeah, for us, we haven't seen that at all. In that particular club, we have kind of 3 different products, even within our Nash brand there. And so that club in particular is about a $90 a month club. So it's kind of towards that, higher end for our market. Equinox would be the only thing that they have one club in the greater Vancouver area in the downtown core, which I think is on average about $160 a month. So we're kind of the second highest tier with that price point. So it hasn't done anything. That club actually averages about, and these are all Canadian dollars. So, I know sometimes people like to do a comparison US, but at the end of the day, it's apples and apples as far as we kind of look at it from that perspective. But that club does on average about $200,000 a month in personal training. So, and there's been zero drawback or hiccup since eGym was introduced to that. If anything, what I would say is it's enhanced it. So I'll give you a great example is that particular club is in a community that has a high, Asian influence and or population in that particular club. And so there's a lot of, kids that actually engage in some personal training. And for those of you that obviously understand how hard it is to keep a kid's attention in general, you can imagine if you're not their parent, you're just a trainer. The gamification of eGym has been great for, say, that population to really hold their attention through some very specific strength training exercises that's, based on their goals and their programs, et cetera. So if anything, I'd say it's enhanced it, not necessarily from a monetary standpoint, but more from a ability to program and create differentiation and separation around what they're doing to, build clients, workout regimes.
Got it. Another question that's come up here from William is, you mentioned a product called EcoFit. What is it? What does it do?
Okay, EcoFit is, there's several brands and businesses out there. EcoFit, and Dave is a gentleman that we work there with, and one of the, I think, co-founder, CEO. I'm not sure Dave's exact title these days, but EcoFit's a really simple chip. It just plugs right into each and every one of your pieces of cardiovascular equipment, and then you get real-time stats on exactly what's happening. Depending on how you want to set it up with them, you get, weekly and or monthly reports. So as an example, my maintenance team, they literally get daily reports if they want them. They can log in the system and look at it stuff daily. You also have insight to, say, breakdowns on equipment. So if a piece of equipment that's typically used X amount of time every day, all of a sudden for a day is not used at all, a flag goes up that says that machine's broken. So whether or not your team has noticed that or not, log that in your automated maintenance system, or even if you're still using the manual one, regardless of that, you would get notification that that piece of equipment was down, so you can fix that, because that's obviously not something that's good for a member. And so that's really kind of how it works and what it does. And when you buy new equipment from the manufacturers, a lot of the times they'll include the chip for you if you talk to them about that as part of your purchase agreement.
Okay. I've got a follow-on question from Jim again. In purchasing eGym, did you purchase an eGym circuit, or did you buy individual pieces of eGym equipment that you've placed throughout your club?
We did 10 total pieces, and so we didn't do the full circuit. We did 10 of your, what I would call the obvious meat and potato pieces of any kind of circuit that we did, and so they are arranged in a circuit. And then what I would say is also during peak times, it did get busy enough for us in that area that we posted a schedule of when essentially circuit classes are running. So they're about 3 hours on average every day now, where there is a circuit type format that is followed pretty strictly, I'd say, in that facility, because just the popularity of what happened to it as we put it in.
And so are you, and this is me asking the question, is that almost like a small Group X program that you've built around the eGym circuit?
It was just more because some people were kind of popping in and wanting to do 1 or 2 pieces, but if another member was going through it trying to do the circuit, it became disruptive for those that were really using the eGym equipment as a circuit. And so really as a courtesy to them, because that was essentially their core workout, like that's what they were doing, that's what they were there to do. So at some kind of in the morning, and then for a couple hours in the evening, we reserve it for that circuit use only. And then, in that way. And we also did in our club, like we worked with eGym on some of their branding. We put up some additional graphics in the area in this kind of section of the club. It's kind of in a corner, but still in a very kind of prominent place in our club, where it kind of highlights like this is the e-gym area. So wanted to really kind of call it out for us also as kind of a different amenity and service that we were offering that was different than any of the competition, because obviously no one had it at that point, and I still believe no one else in Vancouver does.
Mm-hmm. Marty, I've got a question coming in from Jill for you. How have other customers implemented the eGym program for member onboarding? Can you talk a little bit about other experiences besides what Chris has shared with us?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, Jill. I'm glad you brought that up. So, what some clubs are doing successfully is they're offering an onboarding session onto the eGym equipment with a trainer as part of, Chris talked about like the first appointment, the onboarding appointment. Maybe ideally you would have 2 of those, but in that first appointment, actually getting a member onboarded onto the equipment and putting them through a workout. What that allows you to do is get a really great idea of where they're at strength-wise, since our machines are actually, testing them, muscle imbalances, even comparing them against other people of their age and what we call biological age. So me, I'm 36, and my biological age is 50. That's a motivator for me to want to get that back down. So what they're doing is they're actually providing that as part of the onboarding session, doing a strength trainings, what we call the circuit, but really the full body workout gets an idea of where you're at and where your baseline is strength-wise. And it allows them to see that right within the app as well. And it's a great motivator for them. So you can then use that data to then either try to get that person onto an additional membership that includes eGym, or potentially even tie it in with some PT. So we have a lot of really creative ways that you can use that and get that member into whatever particular track or journey inside the club that you want. And it's a great way to, actually have them go through a strength workout and have that data available to them. So there's a lot of creative ways you can do it. But including it as part of the onboarding is something we see a lot of success at a lot of different clubs.
Excellent. I got another question from Mike. And Mike says that one of the things that Chris mentioned was the personalization of the experience for onboarding and the concern about injury to uneducated members. How do you encourage members to use the club prior to them working with a trainer for your onboarding process? And as a follow-on, how do you engage and educate members that won't or don't take the onboarding session?
So if I understand the first part of the question, it's about the individuals using the club prior to, say, working with a trainer from a personal training perspective or from a goal assessment perspective. So I guess
I think it's more the onboarding process. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I think it's critical that you have those appointments happen as quickly as possible. What I would tell you is, we've been very successful in our overall personal training department. We have 23 locations. We'll do north of $26 million in personal training this year, with pretty significant margins that I would say are, certainly top of the class in terms of the fitness business as a whole. With at the same time what I would call the highest wages that are paid to personal trainers, across our competitive marketplace. So, I think you got to get in there as early as possible and have the trainers engage. With the eGym platform as an example, the reason that we don't, and again, we think it's a great product for sure, but the reason we don't follow their strict protocol is our belief system is certainly as an organization is we don't believe the trainers are, we don't want to limit them. And so we kind of look at them as artists to some extent. And so we don't want to limit their creative freedom around programming and really asking those questions to individualize the experience for each and every member. So as part of the onboarding, they have to onboard people into a minimum of 3 pieces of eGym equipment is kind of what we ask for, but not all 10 as an example, because that doesn't necessarily speak to what that person was looking to do when they came in that day. And so we're very goal centric about what are your goals? What are you looking to accomplish? Why are you here? How can we help you? Let's talk about the safest, fastest, most effective way to do that. And that's the kind of dialogue our team would have conversationally to work someone through, those couple assessments. The individual says, hey, I'm not interested in your assessment. I get it. And again, that could be someone that might really need it. There's some other things that we'll continue to do to message people again from that onboarding continuum and what those drip campaigns for those individuals as a member might look like. And so that could be some individualized messaging around some additional like fitness assessments. We send out birthday emails we'll send out, hey, due to this whatever holiday, here's a coupon for free nutrition consultation if you're interested. Because for some people, it's like, no, I know what I'm doing in the gym, but maybe what they really need is help with their nutrition. And so we might reach out to those that say no thank you to what they view as a fitness assessment. But hey, if you want to talk to me about my nutrition, like, yeah, there I have some questions, because I hear about all these different diets that are out there right now, intermittent fasting and keto diet, and I hear about all this other stuff. Like, can someone help me with that? And so there's another kind of avenue there to circle back on that we'll sometimes approach from that perspective, to kind of send that messaging out with obviously some imagery and some follow-up and so forth. So I don't know if that,
okay.
I think it covers it, doesn't it, Al?
I think it does. Thank you.
Okay.
I've got a question from Jen for you, Chris. If beginners are not wanting one-on-one personal training and not super comfortable with technology, then what do you steer them toward?
If they're not comfortable with one-on-one training and they're not comfortable with technology, what do you steer them towards? Well, I mean, for us, I would say, that the steering is going to be in the sense of, someone's going to join, we would have somebody talk to them individually, right? So for us, this is not just an entirely electronic process. I mean, certainly things are happening there from a technology perspective, but typically when a new member joins our facility, and certainly from a best practice and a guideline standpoint, our fitness manager would meet them at the time of sale and have some dialogue with them and hopefully build some rapport to put them into that continuum. If you said, well, they don't want that, they don't want technology, I don't know. To be completely frank, I'd say, man, what are you hoping to have accomplished? I mean, they're certainly going to enter into your bandwidth and into your facility. They're going to get some different, like I said, push notifications and different things from the app, from just an overall member experience or member usage. But there's not necessarily a lot that we're going to continue to chase or badger them down. I mean, I think you got to, respect people to a certain extent. Say, look, if they told you no to the fitness experience, and they talked to your manager and told your manager no, and they've said no thank you to this technology, I think there becomes a certain point with a consumer where you might begin to badger them a little bit. And so I think you want to take a bit of a soft approach where, look, they're a member now. Ideally, you might be crossing your fingers a little bit to say you're certainly hopeful that they're going to start using the facility. And then as some rapport and trust in your business and that business relationship begins to build, I think the idea was they would respond to some of the additional communication and or signage that they would see either in person in the club, whether they hear it on mic announcements, whether they see things on your digital TV screens in terms of what kind of messaging or marketing and different things you have going on inside your facilities. Like for us, we have a relationship with both the Zoom media, and we also use Upshow. And so there's a couple different ways that members get communication in our clubs from a technology perspective around how they can continue to enhance their experience and kind of be part of the community of that particular facility as well. And then, you just kind of continue, I think, to work through that trust building process and eventually get to a place where they're willing to meet with someone, especially, again, if we're talking about a beginner who doesn't really know what they're doing, they're going to need help because unfortunately, as much as everyone says, I can go on the internet and get anything I want. Not really. I mean, you can Google TRX right now, and unless it's a master trainer TRX individual in that video, then the video is likely garbage, unfortunately. That's just the sad reality of, hey, I can just Google stuff. You can, and at the same time, you can't. So it's always good to be with a trusted resource that can really, help take away any risks that are involved with whatever it is, you're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. With a follow-on question, you've mentioned HubSpot and drip campaigns a couple of times. Mike is asking, how do you segment your members beyond, whether they're engaged with PT or not engaged with PT, or to the extent you do, for ongoing engagement and encouragement? What are your segmentation categories?
Off the top of my head, I couldn't sit here and rattle them off, but I mean, you can segment down really as far as you want to, again, depending on your data. So again, a shameless plug for Al and his team, but we use Motionsoft. We are a Motionsoft customer. So we can look at whatever areas of the business that we want to look at, and we can look at member usage data around different times of the day, different, if they're using classes or not using classes, and then we can kind of target those audiences as we see fit. Back to emerging technologies, and there's some other ones out there now. I know there's some groups that use, brands like Mobile Inc. or whatever, where again, you can kind of get an idea of the fluidity of somebody's kind of customer journey and or their experience, and you can specifically target them in your drip campaigns with the kind of messaging that you believe is going to resonate based on like businesses and or like searches from a lifestyle perspective that speak to the same kind of journey that would happen inside your facility. So, you know, we break it out into what I would call probably, I don't think we're broader than 5 categories at this point. At the same time, there's really no limitation to your business and just a level of sophistication that you want to put it through. For us, we tend to chase after just really the big rock items and not necessarily try to get stuck in the weeds too deep on some of the like smaller, really minor categories.
Got it. Excellent. I don't have any other questions from the audience. Marty, anything else you want to end with as our sponsor on this webinar?
No, nothing really to add. Obviously, Chris, thank you so much for sharing some of your expertise today. I think this was great, and a lot of great questions from the attendees as well. So obviously, Jim is just happy to be part of this, and thank you, Al, and the Motionsoft team as well. Really appreciate it.
Excellent. So before we wrap up, just a couple more plugs for the Motionsoft Technology Summit. Again, the dates of the summit are September 16th to 18th of 2019, right here in Washington, D.C. If you're interested in attending, please send us a note at info@motionsoft.net, or you send it to al@motionsoft.net, and I'll make sure to get back to you with a link where you can register for the summit at the early bird discount rate. We thank you for joining us today for this webinar, and remind you that on December 12th at 2 p.m. Eastern, Raj Serene from Staiku is going to be talking about artificial intelligence and how it's impacting the fitness experience, showing you some of their products. With that, I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar for today. If you have any questions, please contact us. If you'd like to get in touch with the folks over at eGym, Marty, you want to tell them how to do that?
Yeah, sure. You know, I can, as a follow-up here to the attendees, we can provide the appropriate information. A lot of our information is available on the website, egym.com. You reach out directly, sales@egym.com as well. But we'll provide a follow-up to all the attendees. Thank you. Excellent.
Excellent. Thank you both. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you've been on the road, and Marty, thanks for moderating the panel. We look forward to speaking with you guys in the very near future. And with that, we're going to end today's webinar series.
Thank you.